Welcome back. So we got another one looking over my shoulder. So this one, got to read the tag, misfires, has end shake, crane alignment, repairs need, check the throat. So it's a Colt Trooper Mark V, and they say it misfires. So, I mean, obviously we're going to check all the usual stuff, right? End shake, which I even made a note on the tag. Obviously I already read that off. So yeah, we got some end shake. Timing, so let's check our timing. So this is single action, a little bit of drag on the cylinder, cock it back slow, cylinder popped in, cylinder stopped, popped into the notch prior to the hammer going to full cock because I could lower the hammer down. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times in single action. Double action, not so much. Hammer fell. Now I'm going to rotate the cylinder. Rotates quite a little ways before that cylinder snaps into the notch. So it's not like a Smith & Wesson. The single action and double action are different in their timing. So we got to take out the end shake and time it double action. Single action is fine. So that tells us that the hand is probably okay. We're going to have to work on the double action sear in the hammer. Misfires. So what about our firing pin? Well, I don't know about you. I don't know if you can see that. Maybe you can see it better with my hand is light in the back. We got a ton of protrusion. Ton. Now, one thing that I don't like is that the firing pin bushing is below flush with the rest of the breech face. So the primer backs out against that, and then when you go to pull the trigger and the cylinder starts to rotate, that primer can catch. Let me grab something. See that a little easier. See if this comes across, can catch. Yeah, it's just recessed. So what I may end up having to do is file this down to where the breech face is flush with the bushing. You could install an oversized bushing. I'm going to have to do some looking on that. Our barrel cylinder gap is, when the cylinder's held all the way back, it's pretty excessive. I mean, I could measure it. I'm not going to. So, a couple different things going on there. Crane alignment, I mentioned. Yep. So look at our seam right here between our crane and our frame. See that? When I go to push the cylinder to what is the right side of the gun, see it opens up a bit. So going to need to get that taken care of. And honestly, that's going to be the first thing I'm going to do. So those of you faint at heart, look away. Still free. Pushing down, our latch catches a little bit. Pulling up, our latch catches, and we're off just a little. I got to push that ass end, the back end of the cylinder, over just a little bit to get it to latch into place. And I can force that over. Are we free to? We're still free to spin. I'm going to do it one more time. Again, non-marring hammer. You don't want to hit it with a ball peen hammer. Not quite as free as it used to be, but definitely tighter on our crane. Free enough. It's not quite as free to spin as it was, but we're going to stay tighter and last longer. So good. All right. So crane alignment taken care of. One down, a couple more to go. Let's get the grips off, get that cylinder out. Actually, I don't need to take the grips off to get the cylinder out, but But I'm going to have to take the grips off anyhow. Wrong one. Let's try this one. All right. So don't want to crush my gas ring. Ooh, that one's looking good. Cool. So this is my gas ring stretcher. And I know you're not getting a good look at it. It's on purpose. You guys got to take the hands-on class or figure out how to do it on your own. That's mean. Yeah, it is. All right, put it back together and see how much we've stretched her. Or if we've stretched it at all. Whoop, that ain't right. There we go. There we go. Look at that. Now, I'll be honest, I never get it that good on the first try. Ever. Man, I got super lucky that time. Super lucky. That never happens, guys. Never happens. You guys usually see the headaches. You guys usually see the, oh no, everything went wrong, crap. You know, you try to pull the side plate off a Smith & Wesson revolver and everything goes wrong forever. That's what you guys usually see. I can do it in my sleep all day, every day, till the camera gets turned on, and then it's a nightmare. Everything goes belly up, quits working. That's just life. That's just the way it is. And to stretch that and have it be perfect on the first go, it's just unheard of. That never happens. All right, so I've removed end shake, aligned the crane. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this extractor rod a little bit. Just going to bring this in, smooth jawed vise, tighten it up just so I can't unscrew it by hand. Okay, now that the extractor rod is tight in our cylinder, I'm going to put everything back together, make sure everything works like it's supposed to. You got to spin it the right way. Free to spin, no end shake, crane alignment's good. All right, let's move on. Get this side plate off. Starting to work its way free. All right, I don't know if you could hear that little click, but our bits and pieces were falling apart in here. This is our hand. Let me get my tweezers out here. And this is our transfer bar lever. It fits here. And the spring that pushes the transfer bar back is also our hand spring. So our hand rests in here like so. behind that roll pin. Come on now. Yeah, there we go. All right, now we can see everything's in place, so we can kind of see what's going on. So for those of you unfamiliar with the Trooper, the later Colt Trooper series, cylinder stops here, comes back beside the trigger on that back side up through the frame. Nose of the trigger right here, catches it right there and pulls it down. This is the spring. It's a torsion spring, pushing the cylinder stop rearward and up. As you pull the trigger, pulls this down like a Smith & Wesson. And when it lets go of that, when the nose of the trigger lets go or releases the cylinder stop, it snaps up. Pretty basic there. Transfer bar, again, is right here, pivots off this pin. The hand is right above it, right here, pivots off the pin above it. The spring works both of them. It's pinched between the two. It pushes the transfer bar back against the hammer, pushes the hand forward. This is a Smith & Wesson style hand. So as it moves up, comes into contact with the ratchet pad and spins it around until it slides past, just like a Smith & Wesson, only it's on the left side of the gun instead of the right side of the gun like a Smith & Wesson. Single action, we time correctly, so we know that the hand is fine. So in a minute, I'm going to pull it out, actually, so we can look at the double action stuff. I just want everybody to be on point, know where we're at and what we're doing, what's going on. So our double action sear is underneath our transfer bar. Again, I'll be moving all that in a moment. Mainspring here, this torsion spring right here is the trigger spring. It fits over this pin in the frame, fits beside the hammer, and then fits on the other side of this pin. This pin goes all the way through the frame, and the trigger spring rests on it, pushes it up and down. So now I'm going to take the hand and the transfer bar out, because we won't need them. And now as I pull the trigger, you can kind of see, you see that trigger spring. And you can watch up here as the trigger comes into contact with the cylinder stop, pushes the hammer back, then as the nose of the trigger releases the cylinder stop, it pops up just like a Smith & Wesson. Okay, so our double action, it's hard for me to hold this and show you because I don't want to go pulling the trigger and having things go flying all over the place. As we pull the trigger, here's our double action sear, comes into contact with the trigger here. As we pull the trigger like so, releases. Standard Colt, very similar to the Smith & Wessons, right? Pull until it releases. We need the hammer to move back further, so the cylinder rotates further to lock into place before the hammer falls. So in order to do that, we're going to move the double action sear out. So we're going to take it out and take a little bit of material off the cylinder stop right there. So the cylinder, I said cylinder stop, excuse me, the sear, so the sear can move out further. It'll remain on the trigger for a longer duration. Yeah, it's going to be too big a wire. All I'm doing is captivating the mainspring. Hammer comes right off like so. And the double action sear can be pushed straight out. Don't lose the plunger that works it. It fits in that hole right there. Just came out on the bench. It's going to fit right in there. I have to take material off right here. So I got to get set up in the vise. Okay, so right here's that surface I need to take off. These are pot metal sintered steel, and they have a tendency to be a little on the hard side, so I'm using a diamond needle file. Little bit's a lot, so take a little bit off, and then stop and go check it.
Get in the way.
Okay, so this is going to be one of those trial and error. File and check until you get her where you want it. All right, back to the gun. All right, put the double action sear back in the hammer. And then it's got to go back in the gun. And the bad part is we got to put the gun almost all the way back together to check it. All right, so you don't need to sit here and watch me fuss and fight putting this thing back together. So I'm going to get it back together, and then we'll double check it, and I'll show you where we're at on camera. Okay, you see we got it back together. So we're going to check, again, our single action was good before, so it sure better be now. We haven't done anything with it. But double action. So pull the trigger, right? And hey, we're getting close. Hammer fall. Cylinder stop is not in the notch, but really close. There. I hope you can hear the click. It's subtle. Now I'm going to rotate the cylinder, listen for the click. And actually you can see that one. Do this again. So a little bit more. It's better, about half what it was. So I got to take it apart and do that all over again. Once again, you don't need to watch me take it apart. So I'll probably take it apart, do some work on it, bring it back, put it back together again, and see where we're at. We'll let you see where we're at that point. Cool. Okay, so last time, I hope, let's keep our fingers crossed. Double action timing. So slight drag on the cylinder. Cylinder rotates, double action sear pops into place, and I can release the trigger. It popped in early enough on that one. See that? See that? Popped in right as the hammer fell on that one. So cylinder rotates, locks into place with no drag this time. Just making sure the hand can slide up past that ratchet pad. We're good to go. Free here. So crane alignment was done. End shake's done. Double action timing is now done. So when the hammer falls, it's the firing pin. The firing pin can hit the primer, whereas before it was way slow. Way slow. I don't know that I've ever seen one of these that slow before. One other thing I had on the repair tag to check was the barrel forcing cone. Okay, so let's talk about these gauges real quick. Drops in, they're caliber specific, so 38, 357. Here's our tapered portion. And obviously they'll vary to some degree depending on the angle of the taper. We've got, let me move my fingers here, 2 levels. We got a short one and a high one. So these are actually Smith & Wesson gauges, and they're the gauges I've always used. Bob used. This is what we use. So we drop them in. We want the gauge to go in to where the bottom shelf, the lower shelf, is flush or slightly below the back of the barrel, but this surface still above the back of the barrel. If both of them are sticking above, you can run your throater in to give you a bit more of a taper, a bit more of a forcing cone to allow the bullet to fit in there. If, on the other hand, you have this happen, wow, that drops way in there. I mean like 1/8 of an inch below flush. So just to make sure it's not just that gauge, we'll try the other one. I happen to have two. Yeah, same thing. So this forcing cone, customer wants me to check his forcing cone. Well, I checked it. It's extra deep. I'll just make a note of that on the repair tag, talk to him about it. If he wants it fixed, the fix is a new barrel or a barrel set back. So on a Colt such as this, we can do a barrel setback. I don't know, with as deep as that forcing cone is, I don't know that we could set it back enough to fix that. We probably could. I think there's enough material here. We'd have to shave off, rethread it to move the barrel back far enough to do that, and then mill this area out here for the extractor rod. So we probably could do it. It would be expensive, and I don't know that it would be necessary to do. It's going to be the customer's call at that point. So both timing is good, end shake, crane alignment. The hammer in double action will now actually strike the transfer bar and the firing pin with more force because it falls further before it strikes. Single action, of course, it's even further to the rear. The firing pin protrudes a great deal. I'm not worried about firing pin protrusion at all. I think at this point, what I have to do to find out if the misfire problem continues is I got to go shoot it. I think we've probably got it cured. It had some pretty major issues that we have cured. So I think the misfire problem is probably gone. The last thing that I'm actually concerned about is the fact that the firing pin bushing is below flush with the breech face. And if that primer backs out against that breech face, the cylinder may not want to turn. That primer may catch on that far edge and not want to rotate. So I'm going to have to test fire this. You guys won't get to see that. The weather's bad and Robert's a hermit. He lives in his home and does whatever. Yeah, hurts my feelings. Anyway, on to serious stuff. I will test fire it. If it passes, all well and good. Then I call my customer and we talk about the forcing cone and away we go. If it doesn't, let's say it fires, bang, and then I go to pull the trigger, the primer backs out, the cylinder's going to want to stick. It's not going to want to rotate. It's going to be tight. To fix that, I'm going to need to file down the breech face towards flush with the firing pin bushing, which is the actual breech face. And then the gap between the cylinder and the breech here must be tighter than the gap between the cylinder and the breech here, because the cartridges expand, stick out the back. As the cylinder rotates, that has to clear the bottom. I think you guys all get that. It's pretty basic. If the rim's sticking out further, you rotate it, it's sticking out, it spins around. If it's sticking out and will hit here, the cylinder's going to catch. Fine. So I'll end up shooting 6 rounds through this. 357 Magnum, higher pressures. So if the primer's going to back out and cause a problem, I'll know it. Those will be the I won't shoot 38 specials. I will shoot Magnums. Just back to being tight down here as opposed to up here. It's got to be tighter here, tighter, and only by a couple thousandths. Doesn't have to be a ton. I did get a single action army in one time, one of the Italian made single action armies, where the gap up here was almost double what it was down here. Color case hardened receiver. So I had to go in and cut through that color case hardened surface to remove material from this whole surface all the way up to, you can see this discoloration right here where the bluings wore away, up to about there. That's how Smith & Wesson's are. It's how the Colts are. On that single action, I had to do it. I had to get through the color case hardening first. Case hardening's hard, as we all know, and it was quite a chore. But once I got it, everything worked fine, and away we went. So I'm off to the range with this one of these days, and you guys are off to doing whatever it is you're doing, and we will see you next time over my shoulder.